Now, let's go back and look at how difficult it's been, what lessons we can learn, and more importantly, who the enemy is. As I said before, I'm not talking about all of Islam, quite the contrary. I'll say it once now, I'll say it 100 times. The answer to this problem is more in the hands of Muslims than it is the hands of Christians or anybody else. The problem that we face with radical Islamists is in the hands, ultimately, if we're going to be successful, in the lifetime of anybody in this room, this is a problem that must be dealt with within the Islamic world. So I'm not saying all Muslims. And so when I go through and I define, as I will here, and draw some history so you understand, importantly, that this is not just an enemy, but there are two streams of radical Islamists that we're dealing with: Sunni Islamists and Shiite Islamists. And they are different, they have different objectives, and they are different threats to the United States. And so if we're really going to understand the enemy, we have to go back, understand the Muslim world in 10 minutes, obviously, but understand the Muslim world and how they get to what they believe and how it impacts our public policy. Two strains of Islam, dominant strains of Islam: Sunni Islam, Shia Islam. In America, unless you're a Muslim, you probably have no idea what the difference is between the two. Americans, we have been at war against, if you poll Americans, by the way, and you ask Americans who we're at war with, they won't say terrorists. In fact, we just did a poll. Almost 70% of Americans said we're at war with radical Islam, or fundamentalist Islam. That's what they say. They know it. Now you ask them, what's that mean? They have no idea. See, that's a problem for the Islamic community, because they don't understand the community. They don't understand what's going on. They don't understand who these people are. And so when you see CARE or some other group stand up and say, don't criticize whatever, or sound like apologists, then Americans get, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Whose side are they really on? It's not helpful for the Islamic community to be silent. It's important for them to help the education process. It's important for them that just like for a Christian, when a Christian goes out and blows up an abortion clinic, the Christians don't say, well, we understood his point of view. No, we don't understand his point of view. No. Is abortion wrong? You bet it's wrong. Is it murder? Yes, it is. Does he have a right to go and blow that up? No, he doesn't. Clear, crisp, no definite, no problem here. Clarity is important. Let's look at the two sides. Where do they come from? I always say the difference between Sunni and Shia comes down to the fact that Muhammad, who was an amazing leader of people, had one flaw, if you will. He did poor estate planning. He didn't name a leader. He didn't name a successor. And so there were two groups. One predominantly Arab, who believed that, again, based upon mostly their culture, also things from the Quran saying that the leader should be elected by the people, by the elders. And so that's who they chose. The Shia, the Persians, who were also Muslim at that time, that's not how they did things. They were used to monarchies or emperors and a line of succession of heirs. And so, as in all faiths, let's be honest, as in all faiths, the culture gets grafted to the religion. And in this case, the Persian culture got grafted to the Muslim religion, and we have the Shia. Shia stands for what? Well, who was the first ruler of the Shia? The first ruler of the Shia, well, Muhammad didn't have a surviving son. He had a surviving daughter, Fatima. She was married to a man named Ali. So what is Shia? It stands for Shiat Ali, the followers of Ali, or the party of Ali. That's where the word Shia comes from. He was the first imam. The first imam. And there was a line of succession after him, his heirs. First his son, he was killed. Then his second son, he was killed. all by the Sunnis. I mean, this was a brutal time. I mean, just look at Europe during this time. It was a brutal time. 700s, 800s. I mean, it's not a place you'd want to be hanging out. And so there was an attempt by the Sunnis to cut off the line. And so rejoin, unify the Muslim world. Well, that continued on until the 11th Imam. The 11th Imam was imprisoned. The Sunnis were convinced at that point that he did not have any children, and then he was killed, poisoned. Well, the Shia believe that while he may have been in prison, he still had a baby. He still had a child. Okay? Sunnis obviously don't believe that. Shia do. He had a son who was born in 868. His name was Muhammad. According to the Quran, the Mahdi, who's going to come back, will be named Muhammad. This child happened to be named Muhammad, coincidentally. According to Sunni legend or Sunni history, he appears at the death, at the funeral prayers of his father, the 11th Imam, and is whisked away and hidden from the Sunnis. Where? In Jamkaran, in Qom, a well, Jamkaran well. And there he lived for 70 years or so and ruled through interlocutors. And then he announced that he was going to disappear. I mean, I'm simplifying here. But that before he did so, he announced that he was in fact the Mahdi, the Messiah. Not the Messiah, excuse me. He was the Mahdi. Difference. He was the Mahdi foretold in the Quran, who was going to come at the end of times when, after a great period of chaos and destruction, that after that period of chaos and destruction, that there would be a time of peace and justice where he would rule the world for Islam. That's what the Mahdi's going to do. Okay? And so the Shia, in it would have been 9 something after the Mahdi disappeared, decided at that point, okay, our leader is gone. There will be no more imams. We know who the Mahdi is. We know who was predicted in the Quran by Muhammad, who was going to come back to rule us. And so we wait. We wait. We don't govern because we don't have a leader. We don't organize, we don't have a leader. We have religious organizations, but we don't have any civil governance because we have to wait for the Mahdi. And so they wait and wait